Hello everyone, and this is a simple exercise in how to create like particles flowing around circuit lines. So the core thing is making the circuit lines, and then we'll just see how to add particles on top of that. So we'll see two examples. We'll see this one, and then we'll take a look at this as well. Now this is all based on a set of digital assets that you can get for free. It's called AElib. It's by Nicholas Taylor. Okay, so if you do a search for Houdini AElib in Google, like the first thing you get is you get like a GitHub link, so you can get it from there. So make sure you download that, otherwise this tutorial does not work. So this was going to be a part of my my new user interface training, but that was already too big, and I kind of thought, okay, I'll just make this one for free on YouTube. So if you want to check out the rest of the training, you can go to my website. I'll put a link below in the description, so you can take a look at it if that is something that interests you. Okay, so the main core thing is being done by this little node called connector, okay, which is part of the AElib. So we'll just take a look at how that works and then build up the rest of it. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with a simple grid, and let's just keep this. I'll give it about, say, 24 by 24 is fine. And then we'll take a divide node, and I'll get rid of all the internal stuff. So just turn on remove shared edges, and it will get rid of all the internal. We'll just have like points left on the side. Now the way the connector node works is it takes a straight line which only has 2 points, and then it generates like a curve using that straight line. So what we need is we need a start point and an end point. So what I can do is I can just take this, I can take a transform, and I can scale this down. So this can be my start and that can be my end. Now what I want to do before that is, in order to connect these, like I want each point to connect to each point on the outside and form like a line. We're going to put each point into its own group, and you can do that using the partition node. Okay, so just put a partition in the middle and set this to points and give it a group name, and then what you want to group is the point number. So do a backtick and do @ptnum. So what you'll end up getting is each point will get its own group. So you'll get like P0, P1, P2, P3, whatever. And the same thing is happening here as well. Like naturally it's just moving downwards. What I'll also do is I'll take an add node and I'll get rid of all the geometry. So just turn on delete geometry but keep points. Okay, now we can merge these together. So I can just take a merge. Now depending on where you want the start and where you want the end is how you will connect this, right? So if you want the inner points to be the start, that will come in first, and the outer points will come in second, like that. And if you want it reverse, then you do it, the other way around. Okay, and then I can take another add node, and I can just go to polygon by group, and then say each group separately, and turn on and type in P star. So all of them will just get connected individually, and that gives you the basic setup that you want. Okay, now the rest is fairly simple. We just want to convert these into like fancy connecting lines. So you can just take the AE connector node, okay, and we'll have to work on each line separately. So we'll just take a for each primitive. Okay, so take a for each primitive, we'll drop this in the middle and just connect that. And like by default nothing really happens. So it has multiple it has a whole bunch of types in there. So let's keep the direction to 1 over here and 0 in the y-axis. See, so you can have stuff like this, and we can adjust the influence how much you want. The normal scale isn't doing anything. You can also like flip the outgoing direction. This is actually a pretty useful node. You can do some really fancy stuff with it. If you've bought the training, Then for the data visualization stuff also you can use this, so you can do like a whole bunch of fancy data visualization with this. Okay, so you can sort of like, just connect this and make, fancy designs with it. Okay, so you have a variety of stuff. You have like linear, Bezier, you have radial. Again, just type in this where you want the center, and then based on that, it will kind of, adjust. Okay. So you can have like loop Bezier, which forms loops. Okay, you can do like an offset for it. You can have a missile, which is weird but interesting, like it does this. Okay. You can have rounded. Again, like make sure you specify a direction, like a vector for it. Okay, so we can do 1 and 1, which gives you a very fancy little design. You can have apply rounding, or it can be straight like that. And the other version of it is called angular. Okay, which again, like you can define, how much the circuit lines will kind of break up. See, so you can, So if you haven't used the AElib tools, you should. It's pretty massive and really useful stuff. Okay, yeah, so you have like XYZ. Again, I'll show you like more examples of these, but yeah, you have like a whole bunch of stuff. You can also do like parabolic arcs with this. Okay, so once you've done that much, okay, like let's say we've done about this, we can also flip the direction by doing like a minus in direction. So, that works as well. Let's keep it to rounded. I think rounded looks nice. And now the next step is fairly simple. What we want is, let's say we want like particles moving along this. So this is also part of my my user interface training, but it's a really simple trick. Okay, like we're not going to do actual particles. So what we're going to do is, firstly, I'm going to resample this. Okay, so let's take a resample. And you want like evenly spaced points. Okay, so we'll do that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to select points. We're going to copy a geometry onto it. And then we're going to use a sort to just shift the points. So it looks like they're moving. Okay, they're technically not moving, but it just gives you the illusion that it's moving. So I'm going to take a sphere. So I'm going to take a tiny little sphere. Okay, and take a group expression. Let's also do one thing. In the resample, we'll also turn on the curve view attribute. We can use that for coloring later. So I can plug in this over here in group expression. Let's make a group called move. We'll set it to points, and you get a ready-made thing called 30% chance, which is it's going to select like 30% of all the points. I don't want those many. We'll make it like 0.1. So it's selecting like 10% of all the points. Okay, and then I can just do a copy to points. The target points will be move, and just, plug this in. So this is fine. Let's make it really tiny. Now what I can do is take a sort before the group expression, come into the point sort and set it to shift, and just type in @frame, and that's it. Okay, now depending on the number of points, like the one thing you can't do with this is you can't vary the speed of it, but this is what you'll get. Okay, so depending on how many points you have is how slow or fast it gets. Like if you have too few points, it's just jumping from one selection to another. It'll get jerky. Okay, but with enough number of points, it looks smooth enough. Okay, and then what I can do here is let's take a color node, and I can take ramp from attribute. I'll set it to curve view. Yeah, there you go. That looks nice. And let's do a copy of this. I'll make this slightly darker, and then we can just merge these together. So this and that, and there you go. Let's do one thing. Let's take these points and we'll make them, let's make it really bright. Okay, there you go. So press play, and that's it. Okay, so this is fairly simple. Okay, now let's say if you want to turn this into, like a sphere thing, where it's, like you want to do maybe those like aircrafts taking on and off between different countries kind of a thing. So what I can do is I can take a sphere. So I won't repeat the end bit because that's the same, but we'll just see how to make, these kind of arcs. So I can take a sphere, let's make it slightly bigger, and let's keep it to polygon. I'll give it about 60 segments. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just give it normals because we're going to use the normals later. So just take a wrangle and type in @n is equal to @n. Okay, so that will give you normals. Okay, now let's take a scatter. So I want to scatter two sets of points, equal number of points. Okay, so let's say we scatter only about 30 points, and I'll do Control-C, Control-V. I'll copy the total count from one of them and paste it into the other as a relative reference, and just change the seed value. Okay, so we have two sets of points, they're just differently placed. Okay, so this is one set and this is another set, right? So the rest is actually exactly the same. So firstly, do a partition. So, they need to form straight lines. So that is important. So all of it is pretty much the same. So I can just copy paste from here. So we merge it and then we use the add, and we should get straight lines like that. Now, just make sure and check that we still have our normals. So we still have the normals, which is good because we're going to need those. The rest is simple. Take the connectors and do Control-C, Control-V and just paste it here, and you'll get this. Now what I can do is I can come into the connector, I can come to loop Bezier. Okay, now by default it goes up, in whatever direction I tell it to go. But in our case, we wanted to go in the normal direction, so in the direction of the normals. So what you can do is just turn on use direction attribute and type in N, capital N, and that will give you this. And then you can increase the number of segments if you want it, smooth enough. And you can also define like a global scale if you want. But yeah, the rest remains the same. Like if I just take this and put it in here, I should get, see, I should get that. So yeah, so first and foremost, like a big thanks to Nicholas Taylor for, building up the whole thing, because without that, this would be a lot more complex. Okay, so the AE connector really makes life easy. Okay, especially like if you're doing a lot of user interface stuff, this is something that you need all the time. One of the things that you can do if you want to do like varying speeds, maybe you can have like multiple resample nodes. Like that's the only way you could actually do it. Like it would still be simple enough. Like what I can do is I can do Control-C, Control-V, and I'll take more points or less points. Like the lesser the number of points, the faster they will move. Okay, and let's move this down. I'll just take this and do Control-C, Control-V. So I'll have like a brand new set. Okay. And in here, I can change the seed. So let's make it +6 or something. Yeah, okay. And let's merge these together. So what it should do logically is we should see some of them moving fast and see, there you go. So you get some of them moving faster and some of them moving slower. So you can do stuff like that. Or like if I make this, like how much is this resample? 0.06. So if I make this like, let's say 0.02, and then just adjust this, the selection 0.003. Yeah, okay. So you'll get like some moving, see, again, like you get the same thing. So if you want to do like varying speeds, you just have like multiple resamples and, just adjust the sort value and adjust the group expression, and you can have like, varying speeds happening. So it's actually nice because you don't need to simulate anything, like that's the best thing about it. Another thing we can do with this is if you want to offset them, this is again probably not the best way to do it, is I can take like a point jitter. So let's take a point jitter, and what I'll do is I want it only in the in the y-axis. So I'll make both of them 0. I'll drop it in here. Yeah, okay. I just lower the scale. So what I should get is, okay, that's a bad idea. Hold on. Let's do it in the end. Let's do it over here. Yeah, okay, don't do it there, do it in the end. But there you go, see now they are sort of like, slightly offsetted. We can try to adjust in each axis. And 0. Yeah, there you go, see, so you can have like, like they're slightly off, each one is slightly offsetted. So yeah, like it's not the best way to do it, but it is the simplest way to do it. Okay, in the sense that you don't need to do any kind of simulation work. Okay, it won't give you as much control as having particles, but it's decent enough for like a simple job. All right, so before we close the lesson, let's talk a little bit about rendering. Okay, now rendering something like this is usually very simple because it's mostly just lines and points. So what you need to do is you need to give like a width attribute for your curves and a p-scale for the points. Now in our case, we don't need to do a p-scale because we're using a sphere. And especially if you're rendering using mantra, then if you just keep the sphere to a primitive, it barely has like any kind of a memory footprint. So what we'll do is I'll start with just the curves and we'll set up a shader. Now what I'm also going to do is we have the curve view attribute here and also on the spheres. Okay, so we can use that for coloring. Let's do one more thing, right? Like I'm going to take a grid. Okay, I'm going to give this a grid and let's also create a camera. Okay, so I'm going to create a camera and I'll keep it small. So I'll make it 640/480. And I just want to create like a flat plane over here. Just make it big enough and give it, let's say about 30/30 should be fine. Okay. And then let's remove all the points and I'll do copy to points. Yeah, in the add, turn on delete geometry, and then we'll plug in the same sphere over here. So we should get this. Oh, sorry, the other way around. Yeah, so we just have, like spheres over here. And because I want everything to have the color coming in through the curve view attribute, what I'll do is I'll just create one for this. So I'll take like a attribute at just float, I'll drop it in the middle and I'll call it curve view. And I'll just set it to set always and keep it at 1. Okay, so that's the overall scene that we have. Let me also do one more thing. I'm going to take a transform and I'm just going to push this down slightly. Yeah, like the grid should go down a little bit. All right, so now we've set this up. Let's start off with the basic curves. Okay, and I'll just place it in the center. And what I can do is let's set up a renderer for ourselves. So we'll set up mantra and I'll just do new floating panel. We'll pick up render view. Okay, and let me just hit render. Now without doing anything, if you just render this right now, it'll automatically generate thickness for the curves and it'll also pick up the basic point color shading that we have given. See, so you'll pretty much get what you want. So what we can start with is, let me just take a wrangle and I'll give it a width attribute. You might want to stop the render because it'll just keep rendering, re-rendering all the time. So we'll do f at width is equal to 0.01. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we can, like, if you want to see a final render, turn off this button. Okay, like this is the IPR button. So there you go. So what you can do is if you want the lines to be a little bit smoother, I can come into my, the mantra renderer, come to rendering and the pixel samples, we can make it like 5x5. So that'll give you smoother lines. So now the next thing is I want to generate a material. So we'll just take a standard like principled shader, but I'll create my own material network. So I'll create a material network, and then I'll just create a principal shader in there. And we can just, I can just take this and assign it over here to the whole object. If you want different shaders for different objects, you can do that. For now, I'll just assign like one material. So yeah, so it's sort of generating a specular on this. I won't work with a specular right now. So I'll just make it like come to the specular and get the IOR to 1, and that will get rid of the specular. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to set up like the basic color based on, like we can bring in CD, right? Like it has color. So I can just take a bind, and I'll just turn this off, and we can make it CD and set this to color. And so that should allow me to just pick up, whatever basic colors are there. Yeah, there you go. So you can do that. But if you want a little more control, what I can do is in the bind, instead of setting it as a color, I'll set it to float, and we'll pick up curve view. And then I can plug it in through a ramp parameter. So let's call this as color. Yeah, and I'll just plug that in there. And so what that does is like I should get, more control over the whole thing. Yeah, so if let's say I take this and I'll make it like red or something, just for, see, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so now if we bring everything in, like our basic setup is done. So I can just come in here and, we can bring in everything. See, there you go. So you have all of it. Now we can do something fancy with this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll come into the material network. Let's make this slightly brighter. And what I can do is I can make the whole thing metallic. Okay, so just come down here to specular, and in reflection make metallic as 1. So the whole thing will turn metallic. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and then what I can do is let's take an environment light, and I can pick up something. Okay, I don't want to see it in the viewport. Okay, so let's hit render. Yeah, let's turn on IPR, and then I just want to transform it till it comes to some point that's interesting. You can pick whatever HDR you want, like that's completely up to you. And I'll just take the exposure to about 2 or 3, so it gets really bright. There you go. That looks nice. Yeah, that looks interesting. And what I can try is I can take my camera and let's just increase the focal length. Yeah, there you go. Let's try to make this bigger. There you go. That looks nice. Let's try to transform it a bit more. Yeah, okay. And like this you don't need to do, but let's say if you want to add depth of field, usually, or actually 99% of the times you want to do depth of field in like post, so in After Effects or Nuke or whatever you're using. But if you want to do that, what I can do is I can come to Mantra, and then in the rendering tab just below the rendering engine there is a button says enable depth of field. Okay, so turn it on, and then you'll have to adjust the focal distance. So yeah, hold on. Yeah, I think this is good. Okay, and the default is usually at around 5, which is in our case based on the scene scale, it's not really working out. So we'll have to go to very sort of unrealistic values. So we'll make it around 0.5 or no, lower still. So go to like 0.03. Yeah, which will like really push it. But the problem with going with depth of field that is this shallow is that it will take a lot of samples to clean up. Okay, so which is not recommended. Like you'll end up spending just a stupid amount of time trying to clean it up. So the best thing is with something like this, you can easily do it in post. Okay, so I'll just show you what I did. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. All right, so before we go to post, I completely forgot the key part of the entire tutorial. it's called flashy blinky lights, and I forgot to make the the flashy blinky lights. Okay, so we'll take a look at how to do that. Okay, it's not complicated. It's just we need to do it. Okay, so let's start from here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just simplify this a little bit. I'll get rid of the second set of points. So we just have like these, and I'm going to lower the amount to like, let's say 0.02. Okay, so we just have a few of these. Okay, this is good. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is I want to take my lines and I want to select the endpoints over here. So I'm going to take a group by range, and I'll take for each primitive. Now, if you take a group expression, okay, there is an option in there to select the first vertex. Okay, like if you click this, it has this option in here. It has this option in here which says first point of primitive, and that will work like if your curve is starting from this point, which in our case it is, so this is easy. But if it's not starting from here, then you'll have to do it through a for each, which is like I can just drop this in here and then connect this, and what I can do is set this to points and select like end and do invert range, or select start and do invert range. So depending on what you have, you can sort of work it that way. So in our case, since we are starting from this, it's we can just select this. It's easy. Okay, the second thing is I'll just give it a color, because by default when we copy something and this is black, so the whatever spheres or anything we copy will also turn black. So we don't want that. Let's just call this ends, and then I'm going to take a blast and I'm going to get rid of the points. So we'll do ends non-selected. Yeah, just keep it on points just to be on the safer side. And then I'll take a sphere and I'll just copy this. So we'll do copy to points. Yeah, and then just make it relatively small. And along with this, I'll also copy a circle to it, just to sort of have like a border. So I'll do a ZX polygon. I'll increase the number of divisions and make it open arc, and then just make it small enough. Yeah, about the size of the sphere. And I can do another one and just copy it. So we'll have like this inside that. Okay, now if I feed this in here, I should get the result that I want. Yeah, okay, so this is good. So now what I want is like these should, like every time this dot touches here, it should scale up. So the way to do that is I'll just drag this down a little. Let's move this down as well. Is we're going to do it using a mask. Okay, so I'm going to take these points here, okay, like these spheres that we have, and let's do a mask from geometry. And firstly, I'll just create like an attribute triangle over here. I'll do f at mask is equal to 0. And this comes in here, and that goes in there. So what you should get is reference type should be points. Okay, and or no, primitives is fine. And let's just sort of lower the size of this. Now it's showing you the guides, which is fine. Okay, but the idea should be like, as it gets closer, this will sort of light up. And then what I can do is I can take a wrangle and I can convert the mask into p scale. Okay, so I can do at p scale is equal to at mask. And if I've done everything right, we can just plug in this set of points over here and see. So as you get these guys moving in, see if I see it with this. So what happens is, see, as they come in close, see, like if I look at that one, like if we look at these two, See, as it comes close, see, it sort of flashes and then, you know, it disappears. So if we look at the whole thing, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so this is how you can do, you know, like flashy blinky lights. Now let's get back to post. And if I come to After Effects, see, this is basically what I have. Okay, so to put it, I didn't render the entire animation. Okay, so I did like a more gold sort of a thing. And what I have is like a simple gradient. So like this is the whole thing. So what I usually do is I add a little bit of glow to it. If you know After Effects, this is not very complex. Okay, I won't go through it anyways, but yeah, so you add a little bit of glow and then you get something called as a camera lens blur. Okay, where you can pick up the gradient ramp that you've created, and then that gives you, you know, depth of field. So this is much more simpler, and you know, it's more real time to sort of work with. Okay, and then you can just do a little bit of grading on top of it. Like that's completely up to you. Okay, but yeah, rendering something like this is usually pretty simple. Like you don't need to do too much with it. And if you don't want to do like a gold or anything, you can just work with like flat colors. Then you don't even need to add a light. Okay, like if you remove the light and just give diffuse like a bright enough color, it just looks flat. And generally that's what you're doing, right? So you're just doing like flat colors and then take it into After Effects or Nuke or whatever, and then just composite using like an add mode on top of your scene. So, you know, that's simple enough. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So this is the whole thing. And if you like this and if you're interested in, you know, more stuff like this, you can either pick up the whole training from my webpage, or the training is also available on Patreon. Okay, so it will be available in 3 parts. The first part is already available, and I'll upload the rest, the second part in March and the final part in April. Okay, so if you're interested, you can subscribe to my Patreon, and you know, you can get the same training over there as well. Okay, that's pretty much it.